Welcome to the Final Frontiers radio show, where we spotlight inspiring missionary endeavors around the globe. Stay tuned to hear how you can personally get involved helping the Lord's frontline soldiers effectively advance the gospel where it has never been preached before. Today we have Gilbert Anger back with us talking about missions around the world. We also have a unique recording of a message to ladies given at a missions training boot camp. And we'll have a fresh touch-of-life report about a tragically orphaned child in Uganda. Hello, this is Joshua Martin, and this morning I am with one of my friends, Gil Anger, with Reach Beyond Borders. He's a world missionary from Australia. He travels around and trains national preachers literally around the world. I can remember back when I first met him many years ago, he came into a church and preached a message that put me on my face in that pew, and my life was never the same after that. He's a very special man to me. He's very special to us at Final Frontiers. We have a lot of respect for him, and it's a blessing to have you here today, brother.
Amen. Amen.
I know that you were a pastor, and can you talk about how the Lord moved you into missions in the beginning?
Actually, the other people were the ones that God used to move me. The vision to go came through one single pastor who took me over to Asia and introduced me to a few countries. Then God gave me the passages that I needed to give me the go-ahead. And then after 22 years pastoring, I finally was able to make a move. And I started in Asia, started in the Philippines, Indonesia, and then I started working in Cambodia. Then I continued to work in India just to introduce myself to them.
How many countries would you say that you've visited or traveled through in the world?
Probably approximately 120 now. Many of them, there's not a great deal you can do. Even the pastors that are hosting you are a little afraid to have you, a little nervous about who might, break in the back door or the front door, or what trouble I might end up causing them after I'm gone.
Right.
Usually what happens. When I go, I ask them, do we have time to do all this, or this is going to be too dangerous for you? I'm not particularly afraid, but they're the ones really that are afraid for me. So sometimes you get into a situation where you have to make a quick exit, and you have to have a plan A and a plan B in case they don't work. There are many people watching you, coming in and out of hotels and wherever they're putting you. All this has to be organised before you arrive, and everything has to be running according to schedule. But even plan B would be move somewhere else quickly to have the conference, and then get out of there. It's just as quickly. Amen.
Right.
So it's not easy. Often we have to cross borders, and we'll meet right across the border, only minutes away, and the other pastors will make their way across. So it's just a matter of where you are, how much you can do, how quickly you can get in and out.
And you're going to teach national preachers. Could you talk about your purpose, really what you're trying to do in training them to plant churches?
A lot of people imagine that you're going and planting churches everywhere, but actually the Great Commission is for us to go and train them to do that. And so a lot of pastors in independent Baptist circles have this idea that it's our job to go and plant churches. Well, that's planting one at a time. Imagine planting one pine tree at a time.
Yeah.
This would take how many millenniums to get done? My job is to get a group together, train them how to do it, take them out and do it, and then find someone that's responsible while I'm gone to take them further. And then once we take them further, we let them go, because really it's too hard to hang on to people, and a lot of them have to learn how to do things without us. But we do the initial training to get them started, and this includes couples, it includes single young men, ladies workers, children's workers, and so on. Now, they all come along. But many pastors, probably 80 to 90% of pastors, do not understand this. They think you have to come here and plant a church, which is just impossible time-wise, and it's, I believe, unscriptural, because I'm there to train them, go out into all the world and teach. doesn't say start churches. They're the ones that will start the churches. My job is to teach them and train them. And then they will go out and win souls. They'll go out and baptize. They'll go out and start churches. That's what I believe the principle is there in the Great Commission.
I can still remember back when I first met you, it was at a Harvest Baptist Church in Fort Dodge, Iowa, and It's still very clear in my mind when I realized when you came in and you put up a map like you often do, and you just showed what was going on around the world. Can you tell our listeners, if you've been in 120-some countries, how well are we doing in this generation to fulfill that Great Commission?
Very poorly, I'm afraid. We're doing very poorly, mostly because the buck starts at the pastor, it stops at the pastor, and the pastor usually is not well versed on the principle that I just laid out of training others. He's more interested in starting a church, and because the pastor doesn't have the right information, the young couple or young person goes out to Bible college. Often they have a wrong theory of the whole thing. That's very often, actually. So you're going from one set of blind people to another. By the time you come out of the college, you don't know what you're doing. You've never started a work, but they're going to send you off to Russia somewhere to start a work, but you've never done it in America or Australia, and so this is what we're doing, and it's just total, I call it lunacy, spending so much money, sending young people out, and we know now that almost 80% of them come back within 3 years.
Right.
So it's a total waste of millions of dollars. Around the world, there's some good fruit in South America, particularly in Central America. From Mexico down to Panama, there's some good fruit in there. There's still some good fruit in South America further down, although there's a lot of Pentecostalism and a lot of other stuff going on. Then there's a lot of talk about the 1040 window in Asia. Well, 1040 is a word people splash around. Just somebody got a pen one day and realized it was 10 degrees, 40 degrees laterally, and they made a rectangle, and they made a big thing out of it. But look, we've been working in that area now for 45 years. It's nothing new, but people brag a lot about it, but we see very little fruit happening. We see very little going on, but what we do see is a lot of short mission trips going on, and I'm afraid that they're taking the place of people going for good to stay there. Oh, I've been there. Oh, yes, I went out and handed out tracts. Oh, yes, I climbed a mountain. Oh, yes, I did this and that. But look, we've been doing it for 45 years. It's nothing new. Asia is going to be the place in the world where we have to go and evangelize. Africa's another story. It's not for the faint-hearted, and people who go there need to be very tough, and that's where we have the great fallout rate. They just don't make it. They want luxury to live in, these missionaries, and they're living on $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month, and the African pastor can live on $20 a month. We've got a problem, a real problem. So in a nutshell, the next generation is in poor shape, and they just don't want to give up their comforts. And now the toy world has moved in. All my toys, my phones, my this, my that, all the high-tech junk. That'll keep them from going, because a lot of that is difficult to use, particularly in Africa.
Yes.
And in other countries in Asia where there's just jungle. So because of all that, they try to find out some other way to give or to make up the loss of going. And usually that doesn't cut it, as they say in golf. Amen. It doesn't cut it. If God wants you to go, you better go.
Do you see many young people surrendering to be the next generation of soldiers? Do you see that happening?
Well, I see them surrendering, but they don't understand the word surrender. When you want to tell God that you're ready, God will say, well, thank you that you think you're ready, but I think you're not ready. Mm-hmm. Then God will throw a few tests at you and trials, and it's right there that probably 50-60% drop out. Then the pastor, not having a great deal of knowledge of the situation, there goes another 20-30% out. It leaves you with about 10-15%. And if they make it through Bible college, then they come to God with a short list. I'll go here or here or here, because that's where my toys will work. and that's where my comfort is. So my wife, she can't handle living outside of a nice house, and she needs a four-wheel drive, and it goes on and on and on, and pretty soon you have nobody going. So I don't see a great deal of people lining up understanding surrender.
Mm-hmm.
Surrender means I have no name, no nationality, no rights, and nobody cares who I am.
That's
I'm a
good.
slave for Jesus. That's it.
Yes.
If you can't understand that, then I'm afraid that you don't understand how he works. Amen?
What about if someone wants to help you or get in touch with you or help you with funds to travel, to teach?
The best way to help me would be if you put a link on there to Riverview Baptist in Pasco, Washington State.
Okay.
All our money goes to the mission field. None is kept as a salary for me or anybody else. So you can be sure that all your money goes to the field. If you want it to go somewhere specific, just put it in the text, okay? Just write the check out to Gilbert Anger and send it off to Riverview. Just let me know in a text that you sent something, and then I can send some news out to you of what we're doing.
For the listeners out there, if you go to finalfrontiers.world, you can look in the show notes and you can see the address to the church that he's speaking about, as well as his phone number, contact information. Brother Gil, thank you so much, and our hearts are with you.
Amen. Amen. And look forward to talking to you again, Brother Josh.
Thank you.
We've been friends a long time, and you've been here a few times, and we know you understand what we're saying. It's true, and so God bless you. Amen.
Thank you. It's been good talking to you today.
Thank you, brother. God bless. Bye-bye.
Okay.
If you're a Bible college student with a passion for missions, but maybe unsure whether you're actually called to full-time service on the field, Final Frontiers has a month-long summer program in Honduras to give you that boost of opportunity you need to understanding the real world of missions. This summer internship provides hands-on training from real American and national missionaries, as well as a true immersion in third world ministry experience. Whether you're a student or a Bible college looking for hands-on field training, if you're interested in this opportunity, please visit us at finalfrontiers.world.
The message that follows was given to a group of young ladies training to be missionaries at the Reach Beyond Borders boot camp in 2014. The speaker is my sister, Aurora Dover, missionary to Peru. It was recorded by pastor's wife Kathy Stallman, who also speaks to them at the end, and it was done in the open air at the camp with wind and dogs and chickens in the background. But I've been asked several times by ladies pursuing missions to make this audio track available, so I hope it will be a blessing to you.
Well, Miss Kathy asked me to talk to you about a certain subject, and we kind of just half-jokingly call this Warrior Women, so that's kind of what we've titled this. I know that might kind of sound bad or scary at first, but I'm going to explain it. In the world today, there's a big push to be a feminist, equal opportunity for men or women, and it's also being really strong, independent, and like I can do it all on my own, that type of attitude for women. We've lost sight of how the Bible really tells us how women should be, which in the Bible tells us we should be feminine. And we should, dress like ladies, we should act like ladies. But it's actually a spirit about it. So it's not the way we look on the outside per se. As women in the ministry and with women with the desire to serve God, we're going to face a lot of hard things. So if you're going to be a missionary, you're going to face a lot of hard things. And I'm grateful for this camp because it helped us before we went to Peru. And you're going to learn a lot of things here. They're going to help you get through it. A lot of things here are going to be really just as hard as down when you go to the mission field. And so it's really important to learn all that you can before you go. But if you do not have a godly strength inside of you, when things get hard in the field, you will quit. If you're married, you'll cause your husband to go home. That's the main reason why missionaries go home, is because the wives. And it's just a sad fact. That's what happens. In Joshua 1:9, God commands us to be strong and of good courage and not to be afraid. And that's a command. God puts that in the Bible. That's a command. That's something we're supposed to do. So as women, we're not only commanded to be feminine, but we're also commanded to be strong. In 1 Peter 3:3-6, I'm going to read this. This talks about how to do both. It says, "Whose adorning, let it not be that of the outward adorning of plaiting the hair or wearing of gold or putting on of apparel, but let it be the hidden man of the heart, in which is not corruptible, even the ornament of a meek and quiet spirit, which in the sight of God is a great price. For after this manner in old time the holy women also, who trusted in God, adorned themselves, being in subjection unto their own husbands. even as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose daughters ye are, as long as ye do well, and are not afraid with any amazement. And so this is the whole key here of putting on this feminine spirit. It talks about this ornament of a meek and quiet spirit. This is something that you put on. It's not the outward adorning of your clothes and your hair. It's the spirit that you put on. And that's what shows true femininity out of your being here. Because you can still be rebellious and arrogant and independent inside your hearts. It's the quiet and meek spirit that truly shows out your femininity. It tells us in verse 5 and 6, it said that the women of old did this, that they adorned themselves in this way. Even Sarah says that whose daughters we are, as long as we do well, and not afraid with any amazement. And if you understand what that verse is about, being suddenly afraid, being in terror, something happens, and that's just it. You're shut down. You can't do anything. These women put on this meek and quiet spirit, but they were also brave women who had strength to do the things they had to do. Sarah is always used as an example of submission. She obeyed her husband when he told her to pretend he was her brother in front of Pharaoh, and also to the other king, Abimelech. He did that twice, and can you imagine things she had to go through when she was taken into that house, the terror she went through? But all the time through the Bible, it doesn't say that she despised her husband. It doesn't say anything bad about her. I think she's a really good example of that strength, but also that meek spirit where she continued to obey her husband, although what appears to us he did was really wrong. Also Jael, if you know her in the Old Testament, she combined strength and femininity to kill the enemy. She invited the enemy into her tent. She gave him something to drink, and she gave him a blanket to lay down and rest. And then she did what she had to do. She had to kill him, and they won the war. So she used not only her strength, but her femininity to accomplish what God needed her to do. Just to use an example from history, I don't know if you know much about Celtic people over in Ireland and Wales. They're my ancestors, so I've studied that stuff. But these women actually, they would go to war with their husbands, and they'd watch up on a hill, and they would go there to cheer their husbands on during battle. And they would either go in, pick up their husbands who were fallen and help them, nurse them, or when the men were all gone, they'd go in and pick up swords and they'd fight. Can you imagine that? They were so strong. They would go and they'd cheer on their husbands, but when their husbands would fall, they'd fight for them. And they were heathens, back then. The strength they had, and as Christians, how much more we should have, because we have God on our side to give us strength. And my husband says it's the idea of an iron fist and a velvet glove. He was talking about that the other day. We have something inside of us that's strong, but the outside of us is ladylike and feminine spirit. And that strength, it can only come from God. You renew your strength in Him every day. This meek and quiet spirit is also something that I think you can keep it. You don't have to renew it every day, but when sin gets into your life, it distracts you and gets in the way. You need to make sure that you have put on that quiet, meek spirit for your day or for your week, and continue to operate in that spirit, and also the strength. Go and renew every day. And how you get strong, you get close to God. That's how you build your strength. You have a strong relationship with Him. You read your Bible, you meditate on what He says, keep His word in your heart. And also the trials that you go through will make you stronger, because you're going through them with Him, and you see the things that He's done in your life, and He will give you the joy. And it says joy is our strength. Well, that's where you get the joy. You look back on those trials and you see what God's done. It gives you so much joy. You see where God was with you in every step, and that gives you that joy that renews your strength. It talks about the sudden amazement, that fear. That fear can consume you and rob you of your strength. It gives you a false femininity. I'll explain that. You hide behind it because you're just a girl. You have a right to be afraid. People use that. They use their fear to make them appear more girly, when rather we should have strength and we can be strong. Because you can overcome your fears. Through Jesus, you can overcome your fears. I know lots of women are afraid of spiders and snakes, and they think they can't go into a certain place that might have something like that. But, God's there. and he can help you overcome something even like that. To some people it seems really small. And you can be strong, you can have that strength without appearing loud and obnoxious about it, because again, it's that quiet, meek spirit that comes in. When you mix the strength you get from God and you put that meek and quiet spirit on, you can become steady, and you can be counted on not to panic in a sudden situation. When things go wrong and it's a sudden problem that just came out of nowhere that you didn't know was going to happen, if your spirit is quiet and you're relying on your strength from God, you can be steady in those storms and those situations. We're not made this way, but God commands us to be this way. He commanded us to be a strong courage in Joshua, and he's also commanded us to put on this meek and quiet spirit in Peter. And we can choose whether or not to obey his command. He puts his spirit, his strength out there. We can choose to use that for our strength, or we can choose to disobey. But he never asks us to do something that he hasn't provided the way to do it. And so if we're weak, we need to renew our strength in him by spending time with him, getting to know God. Everyone else is going to fail you, and he's the only one who's not going to fail you. And you're going to need that on the field. When it feels like you're all alone and no one else is there, you're going to need the Lord. You're going to need a relationship with him. There may be times you can't go to church with your husband if you have kids and you're sick. Your Bible time with the Lord may be all that you have. And if we're not showing a feminine spirit, we need to get with God and renew that spirit, put back on that meek and quiet spirit. It's okay to let guys help you. I know we can pick up stuff and move it. If a guy offers, though, it's okay. You're not going to appear weak, and it's what we should do. But if a guy isn't around, we shouldn't be afraid, lift stuff heavy. We should have that strength inside, and that's just one way that the strength applies to it. The main way it applies is to be strong through the storms and the trials. So I just want to share that with you while you're here during this camp, because you're going to need strength to get through this camp. There's a lot more to come, and the only way you're going to get that is through God. Just remember to keep on that meek and quiet spirit.
The reason that I asked Miss Rory to speak is because I think she fits this perfectly. First of all, I think back to when we went to Peru about 5 years ago. We went and we stayed a month with them. Jason had a church started in a village of San Cristobal, and to get there was like unbelievable. They don't have a vehicle over there. They had 3 small children. She just was not able to go. She couldn't take the children and go to that particular service. And it just seemed like her kids were sick. When I got there, when I went to walk up the hill the first time to see her, she had one baby in each arm and one holding on to the side of her crying. They were all feverish. And here she is welcoming this 20 people, 18, into her home. And her children were sick often the time that we were there. Another thing is she had, from her ankle to the edge of her culotte, I don't think a square inch that didn't have a mosquito bite on it. And I heard her complain not once, not even once. Then I look now, I see them come back, and we're spending more time with them here, and I watch Jason, and I watch him baby her, and bring her tea, and carry her chair, and help her care for the children. And then I watch when he has to go, and he's gone for 46 days, and she doesn't hear from him, and she takes over everything. She's rearing the children, she's paying the bills, she's taking over the leadership of their home, and teaching her children, and making the same decisions that Jason would. Jason trusts in her, and he knows that she's going to make the right decisions. And I can't tell you how many times in this whole situation with Jason and Josh being gone, everybody was saying, I can't believe how calm Rory is. Miss Trish and I had a conversation, and I said, she's a rock. She's just a rock. I'm like bawling on the phone. She's a rock. She's definitely a lady. I think the Lord is pleased in her grace and her poise, but I think he's also pleased in the way that she allows her husband to take care of her. And I just want to see you guys to totally embrace this. You think of Amy Carmichael or Lottie Moon or Gladys Alward or Corrie ten Boom, all these ladies that were on the field, they had to just trust in the Lord, and they had to work hard. And you're going to have to work hard here. You're going to have to keep on going. But I just want to encourage you guys to draw your strength from the Lord, but yet also to have that spirit of femininity that makes you the ladies that the Lord created you to be.
Your inquiries and comments are important to us. If you have questions or perhaps subject matter you would like to have addressed on this show, please visit us at finalfrontiers.world.
Giving birth is a dual experience of trauma and triumph. Many women giving birth to their first child find it a painful event, but by the third, fourth, or fifth child, some testify that the experience passed virtually unnoticed. No matter what the pain of giving birth, we cherish the loving relationship that led to that moment. Birthing churches is comparable. Some bemoan the great pains and strains involved in birthing a new church. Others view it as a joyful experience for the missionary whose labors brought forth the new congregation. Paul birthed new churches everywhere he went and expected his disciples to do likewise. For him, it was natural. Enter a town, convert the lost, collect the converts into a congregation, then disciple them to reasonable maturity so they can do likewise. Many missionaries will never start a church. They view the task as something to be avoided. Others make the mistake of transporting new converts to their services from miles away for numbers' sake. Still others yield to the distraction of unnecessary details. Is there enough money? Are there enough workers? An available building? Funds for seats, signs, and songbooks? These concerns prevent us from bringing new converts together to fellowship, pray, study, and encourage one another. Truthfully, if we worried as much about the logistics of birthing a new baby as we do of birthing a new church, New York City would be known as New York Village. Paul's method was to plant new congregations in the homes of new converts so that from there they could be the church in their community. Starting a new church should be as natural as adding a new family member. Where there is love, the reality of pregnancy is always a blessing. Sacrifices are gladly made for the benefit of the new child. Likewise, birthing a new church should bring joy, regardless of the sacrifices that the parent congregation must accept to benefit the newborn church. God wants the world to be filled with the knowledge of His glory. His method of doing this is by expanding His family into every community through the birthing of new churches. I'm John Nelms, and to learn more about missions, order a copy of my book, The Great Omission, on our website at finalfrontiers.world.
Have you ever wished you could help broken-hearted widows and orphans suffering in the Third World? What about being an encouragement to persecuted Christian families in the Middle East? With our Bags of Hope View distribution program, you can make an impact on the saved and the lost by helping supply food, clean water, vitamins, and medicine. Literally helping to distribute real, physical bags of hope to families in need. To learn more, visit finalfrontiers.world.
Through our Touch Life ministry, you can personally support a child who is in an impoverished and destitute state. We have helped thousands, and there are plenty on our website just waiting to be supported. As with everything, there are always levels of poverty, and I certainly don't want to compare one child to another. They are all in desperate need to have a guaranteed good meal every day, to be fed spiritually along with it, and grow physically and with the Lord. Some, though, have similarities to the sad circumstances that you see of children here in the USA, broken families, unemployment, and living day-to-day to survive. There are also those children who are from a background that we are unlikely to have ever heard of, experienced, or known of. And when I talk about those children, there are a lot in our system who have similar heartbreaking backgrounds. Today I'm going to focus on Kassenworth Patient, a 5-year-old girl who is currently living in one of our orphanages in the Democratic Republic of Congo. It is overseen by a regional director in Uganda who works out of Nebi. For those who don't know anything about Uganda, it is a country in East Africa and is landlocked. It is bordered by Kenya to the east, South Sudan to the north, the Democratic Republic of Congo to the west, Tanzania and Rwanda to the south. With a population of just over 40 million, 84% say they are Christian, though almost 40% of those identify as being Roman Catholic. Muslims make up almost 14%, which has grown over the last couple of decades from 10%. Now Nebi is located on the western side of Uganda, just above the northern point of Lake Albert, and about 10 miles from the border with the Democratic Republic of Congo. She is living in the orphanage located in Mahagi, which is just a few miles from the Ugandan border. Now how did she become an orphan, I hear you ask? Well, thank you for asking, and I'll tell you now. Her parents were part of the Alur tribe. This tribe had dominance of the land in this area where they lived, until Joseph Mobutu became president in 1965. The Anya tribe moved in and started to rule over the Alur because of Mobutu's power. Fast forward to more recent years, and the Alur land is almost completely ruled by the Anya, and a lot of the Anya are in higher government positions. Kassenworth's parents were also in the government positions, and this caused frictions and issues with the Anya in the area, which wanted to be in control. One night, some of the Anya tribe came out. they quietly made their way around the small house, set it on fire, and burnt both of Castenworth's parents alive inside. You have to remember that a house over there is built from sticks and a grass thatch roof, all of which is very combustible. Fortunately, Castenworth was saved by a neighbor and taken to her grandmother where she stayed. Sadly, though, after some time she was given to the orphanage, as her grandmother just does not have the health and strength to take care of her. Now, when I say orphanage, you are probably thinking of a multi-story concrete building. That is not the case, as right now it is just made up of 3 small grass-thatched houses. They accommodate 32 children in total at the moment, 14 boys and 18 girls. They receive some schooling, but they don't have enough funds to purchase the teaching materials, and all of the teachers are volunteers. They are able to feed them some basics like porridge for breakfast and something for lunch and dinner, but this is all done with what little resources they have there. And this is why we are asking for your help to support Castenworth along with some of the other children there. Can you imagine losing your parents at such a young age and in such a horrific way? We can only pray that any memory she has of that night will fade with time and with her young age. She now has an opportunity, though, to grow up strong and with the Lord at her side. With your support, she can have good food every day, enjoy complete education, and grow up loving the Lord. This is but one of so many sad and desperate stories. As I said, we have so many children waiting for support, and some you can relate to, but there are those who also have a past marred in such despair that it just tugs at your heart. I hope this has enlightened you to some of the suffering around the world that is faced daily, but I also hope it has shown you that we have a way to help, a way to shine the light of the Lord to those dark places. Please help us by praying for these children, and if you are able, help support them. To learn more, just visit finalfrontiers.world.
You've been listening to the Final Frontiers radio show, funded by sponsors like you. Thank you so much for joining us. Through the funding of national and native preachers, we endeavor to effectively advance the gospel where it has never been preached before. If you want more information, visit www.finalfrontiers.world. That's finalfrontiers.world.